Eudora Honeysett is quite well, thank you. Written by Lyons, and I listened to it as an audiobook, so it was narrated by Nicolette Mackenzie, and it's published by One More Chapter, which is a division of HarperCollins. The novel is mainly set in South East London and runs from the period of World War II and is set largely in sort of present day. We meet Eudora, and she is now a woman in her 80s, I think 85, and she is quite curmudgeonly. She's a very determined sort of character, but she's also beginning to suffer from the aches and pains and disabilities that can sometimes come with that age group. So she is contemplating taking a final trip to Switzerland to be in control of the way she ends her life. You know, she's not in a particularly bad situation. She's just had enough. And we look back over her life and we understand that there have been events throughout her life that have conditioned her thinking, that have had quite a large effect on her, you know, as they do on all of us. And therefore we come to understand why she is like she is. Some new neighbours move in next door, and they have a little girl, and she's called Rose. And Rose is a charming, ebullient, full of life young girl, and she makes it her mission to befriend Eudora. Eudora, at first, you know, you can almost feel her stepping back and saying, "This is not me," because, you know, Rose arrives on her doorstep, you know, in clashing colours. She has a very specific fashion sense, and you know, she is a cute child. So you know almost that she is going to play a large part in getting Eudora to think about, you know, her mission to go to Switzerland. Is this really going to be on the cards? Can Rose teach her something about the fun side of life? Because, to be honest, Eudora really hasn't had a great deal of fun in her life. The author takes us back to Eudora's early childhood, and this was during World War II. She was obviously the child of her father. He really was fond of her, she was fond of him, and he has to go away to war and he never returns, only she doesn't know that at the time. And her mother is on the way to having a new child, Stella, and that's obviously Eudora's younger sister, and her father leaves saying, you know, make sure your mother and Stella are okay. Her mother turns out to be quite a sort of needy, childlike kind of personality, and so Eudora begins to look after her mother as if she were her parent. Stella is quite a headstrong young woman, in many ways quite similar to Rose, which must be the attraction for Eudora in her later life to, you know, kind of get on with Rose and let her into her life. There have been some real traumas in Eudora's life, and they haunt her to the present day, and they're part of her makeup, they're part of her thinking. Stanley arrives. He is a man of similar age, and Stanley, Eudora and Rose make a wonderful threesome as they begin to explore bits of life together. There's life coming into Eudora's life, which is just lovely to see. So there is a little bit of redemption going on, and it's just, you know, charming. The trajectory of this story, of course, is can Rose bring enough colour and vitality to Eudora's life? Will she eventually end up taking the one-way trip to Switzerland, or will she not? But, you know, she's introduced to Richard Osman and Pointless, which is a favourite TV programme amongst a lot of the elderly and, you know, and young folk. And she becomes quite a fan. She discovers that. She discovers that it's a great thing to go out for pizza. She's never done that before. So part of you roots for Eudora to have some new experiences that are, you know, that are so commonplace and almost take for granted, yet she discovers them into her ripe years, and that is quite poignant. I listened to this as an audiobook, and I have to say that Nicolette has her work cut out, because there are quite a few characters that she has to do. She has to do Stanley, Rose, and obviously Eudora. Now, Eudora in her older years, because we obviously look back to her younger he is, does have the twang of Anne Widdecombe about it. And that for me was a little bit of a turn off. But, you know, you get that ripe, forthright language that Eudora obviously uses, and she captures it actually very well. So Eudora Honeysett is Quite Well, Thank You by Annie Lyons is a lovely poignant, it's redemptive, it's uplifting, it's heartwarming, and it's a nice one to read during these times of difficulty, these COVID times. So one to pick up, I think.